October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month.
Advocates are pushing to stop employers from paying workers with a disability less than minimum wage. Illinois Capitol Bureau Chief Max Cotton has more.
Disability advocates made their voices heard Wednesday afternoon, calling on lawmakers to pass the Dignity in Pay Act.
Workers with disabilities, they want to be paid the same minimum wage as folks without disabilities, right? They want to work in integrated environments, and they want to be able to make money just like anybody else can.
Boyle, whose brother is on the autism spectrum, says the fight is about more than equal pay. It's about how we look at people with disabilities.
When kids are little, they're being told that you won't amount to anything, and then they're pushed through the education system. And when they graduate, they're put into a shelter workshop or they're kept at home. We want to change our thought process on disability completely.
Not everyone's on board with the Dignity in Pay Act.
This bill is well-intentioned, but it is not fully cooked, and it does have flaws in it.
John Huelskamp runs Community Link, an organization in Clinton and St. Clair counties offering opportunities, including jobs, for people with developmental disabilities. His organization and many others that create jobs for people with disabilities can't afford to pay the full minimum wage. He says the bill as written would put the very people it's supposed to help out of work.
They don't have the infrastructure right now currently for community opportunities for employment, and as well as other opportunities to do employment where they're at, but paid at minimum wage.
He says the state would need to provide consistent funding to make up the difference for organizations such as Community Link to be able to afford to pay minimum wage. The bill does provide grant opportunities to make up the difference, but he says that wouldn't be enough. In Springfield, Max Cotton, WGEM News.